and welcome to this webinar presented by J. Walter Thompson Inside and Globant. Today's webinar topic is Technology at the Forefront of Motivation. Technology connects people like never before, giving everyone a platform to share their company's culture and uniting people across generations. But technology is only a platform, a means to break down the barriers to innovation, developing a strong culture driven by a compelling vision of your company's unique mission turns technology from a tool to a medium for success that will improve your profits and engage your employees. This webinar will be recorded and available for viewing shortly after the presentation is over. Anyone who registered for this webinar will receive a link to access this recording via email. If you use Twitter and would like to participate in live tweeting during this webinar, we welcome you to tweet us at both JWT Inside and at Globant and use the hashtag InsideInsights. If you have any questions during the course of the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box. The Q&A box is visible when you hover your mouse over the control bar at the top of your screen. We will address any questions at the end of the presentation in the remainder of the 1-hour time frame allotted for this webinar. Globant is an international IT and software development company. Today you will be hearing from Guillermo, Willi, the Chief People Officer at Globant. J. Walter Thompson Inside is a full-service agency specializing in employer branding, employee communications, and recruitment advertising. Speaking today for Inside is Managing Director and Chief Technology Officer, Kai Yen. And now, to kick off the presentation, I turn it over to Kai.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining. We're really excited today. I'm especially excited. This is the first webinar that we've partnered with Globant to present. And it's a really exciting topic. So something that is kind of near and dear to my heart, talking about this kind of intersection of sort of culture and technology and how powerful that technology can be to enable and empower cultures to do great things, be very productive, be very collaborative, innovative. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about today's world, how things have changed in the last few years, and what the big opportunity is for how we can leverage technology, knowing what that change is like, and then taking and building on that to actually talk about some real examples of how that can be used to foster motivation. And we've got some interesting models for how you can think about the different ways that you can motivate folks, get them excited around shared values, ideation. So very, very great stuff today. Thanks everybody for joining. I'm going to sort of jump right in and just talk about today's world and what's going on in today that's different than it has been over the past few years. I think one of the biggest things that we've noticed, especially at J. Walter Thompson Inside, as we talk with clients so much about communication to employees, communication to future career candidates, is that there's so much interest in culture, right? It's not just within organizations who think about how can I make my culture better, how can I empower my people through the culture, but candidates on the other side are starting to think much more about what is the culture of this organization like, will it fit within my own thoughts and values, and so it's just become really important, and we're seeing more and more people within the industry talking about culture. And I collected a few quotes here that I thought were really great. Kind of everyone knows Lou Gerstner from former chairman CEO of IBM, talking about that culture really just isn't one aspect of the game, but that it is the game. And he always valued culture as one of the most important aspects of how the organization achieves incredible innovation, growth, performance. And so he's one of the kind of the long-standing folks who's really believed that culture is hugely important. This other one is a much newer quote from someone who's very often speaking about various ways to empower companies, supercharge cultures, Simon Sinek. Many of you may have seen him from TED Talks and other things, but he says customers will never love a company until the employees love it first. And I think it's very true. I think that consumers can feel when products are made by people who really love to work for the company. And I think it's really, it really comes through, and I think everybody really feels that. This one I thought was particularly interesting. and you'll see why. But this quote came from a blog post on the site medium.com, which I love. Today, that site has a lot of really great blog posts from startup CEOs and other folks involved with building cultures, and who talk a lot about how it's so important to have, culture as the foundation of companies. So this one in particular had really got me kind of interested in thinking about how, somebody like Brian Chesky, who's the CEO of Airbnb, and how much he values culture. And if you find this post, all you have to do is to go to medium.com, search for Airbnb and culture, and you'll know you found the right article when you find one with a title I can't repeat. But it's a really great post. But it really got me thinking about, what did that really mean for Airbnb? And how did that really empower them? And can I come up with an example of that? So I did a little bit of my own research, and Airbnb is often compared with Hilton. And I thought this was kind of really fascinating, was that, Hilton's been around since 1919 and has amassed, over 150,000 employees. And I think when you count their franchise employees, it's almost double that. But Airbnb, who started merely 7 years ago with only 5,000 employees, has been able to achieve a company valuation of almost the same value that Hilton did in 100 years. And I think this is really kind of testament to how powerful culture can be in order to build really high-performing cultures in companies that have all the employees that are so aligned behind the singular mission of the organization that they all operate like just a very single kind of brained, seamless machine. So I think it's a really great example. And there are many more of these. You can look at so many of the companies that you hear about that have had explosive growth, like you've got the CEO, Kevin Systrom from Instagram, who in 18 months with about a dozen people created something that was worth $1 billion, right? That, and by comparison to them, the New York Times is not even worth $1 billion. So really amazing what can happen. So I think this is something that we see that's really big. And I think the next piece of this, which I'm going to turn over to Guillermo to start to talk about, is how technology is now coming in to be able to be combined with sort of this notion of empowering cultures to really have innovative ways to do this and make this work really well within an organization.
Hi everyone. It's a great thing to be here this afternoon with you all, talking about Globant and what we do about these challenges. So first, I would like to begin with some of the emerging technologies that are happening in the world today. We say that we are living in a software revolution. There are many new and emerging trends like mobile, big data, cloud computing, gamification, cognitive computing, Internet of Things, that are happening all among us at the same time. Many of these didn't exist 5 or 6 years ago, so they are very new. And these technologies revolutions have unlocked the ways that companies connect with consumers and the other way around. The same happens with employees. I mean, these consumers are also joining the world of work massively. According to PricewaterhouseCoopers, by the year 2020, this new generation of digital natives will become 50% of the global workforce. So this is a reality already, and they have different expectations from previous generations. They are feedback driven. They have a sense of urgency. I mean, they don't want to wait to have an internal promotion. They are collaborative and social producers, and there are blurred boundaries between what is happening inside the office and outside the office. More than salary and raises and promotions, they value how the work is integrated into the life projects. So these employees are bringing to the companies these new consumer habits, and we need to do something about it. So the use of corporate applications that we develop and we use internally must produce the same daily satisfaction that they find outside the office. So for companies when developing and having these internal applications, we need to consider these key aspects. So these corporate tools look like consumer software and drive better adoption. So user experience needs to be taken into account. The applications need to be friendly, easy to use, probably without a training or a manual. Then we shouldn't need any specific devices or operating systems, so the experience is seamless. And then the applications need to encourage collaboration and participation among employees, probably using gamification dynamics as well. So the question is how our organizations can be in a good fit to compete in this environment. So what I will try to do in the next section is to show you and focus on our culture and how we use technology to foster motivation. Our recipe, let's say a formula, actually is culture. As Kai was mentioning before, culture it is not a complementary part, but an essential part of our company. We call culture as our operating system, and we have a culture that embraces change and exploration. Why culture is important to us? It's just because we want to motivate each individual. We believe that by giving people autonomy, giving learning opportunities to participate in teams, to be in contact with different people and connected to other ones, they will have a place where they can grow, where they can develop themselves, and that is good for people and also at the end good for the business, and that will lead us to better business results. So what I'm going to talk about is what we believe is the important parts of our culture. That is the intrinsic motivation piece, how they are connected to our values, how we share our values, and then our continuous evolution process by which we make sure that we are always in good fit and that internal changes happen at the same time as external changes in the market. So when talking about intrinsic motivation, we use the model created by Daniel Pink on his book Drive, where he talks about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy is the idea that you have flexibility inside the company to choose the projects, the locations that you want, where you want to work from, the technologies. So you can be Java, but then you can apply for a position in .NET, or then you can go through a reskilling training and pick a different technology. People can apply for these positions, for these jobs freely, but then we also have an internal application that is called Glow that matches the skills, the profiles, the desires, and the interests of the people with the positions available. So it's kind of like both ways that we make sure that people can have different learning opportunities and people have flexibility to change projects. Another example, for example, that happens in Buenos Aires and related to autonomy and flexibility is that we have 3 different offices in the city, one in the north, one downtown, and one in the south. People have the flexibility to work in different days in different locations and accommodate to their personal needs. As a result of this, we have developed an internal application called Next to You, developed by the Globant Labs, with the purpose of facilitating carpooling among Globers and covering these different offices. So those were examples on the autonomy and the flexibility that we have. Then on the mastery pillar, we believe that it is very important to have in a learning environment in which our Globers can learn from each other, can share different content, can share different ideas. We create cross-functional teams with different expertises, different skills that assures efficiency and diversity on the teams, and then the final results to the software that we deliver for our clients. These teams, as you see in the picture, they work in an open environment with no walls, so ideas can flow and can be shared among everyone. And we have also developed an internal tool called GoPods. The pods, it's our own methodology to organize teams using also agile methodologies. And these are cross-functional agile teams that are self-organized. They mature over time, and there are KPIs related to velocity, quality, and autonomy, and we measure that through a tool that we have developed also internally. Then purpose. Purpose is related to connecting to what we do internally to the environment, to having an impact in the communities, to having an impact in the cities, in the locations where we operate. This is also valued by digital natives. I mean, it's like having answering the why I'm working for this company. What does this company do beyond making money, right? And there are three examples that are here in the slides. One is an application developed for children with disabilities. Another one is Colas, is an application that connects schools around the world. And then another one called Cuando Llega, or when is it coming, which is an application that tells you when the next bus is arriving. Now I'm going to talk, so after talking about the pillars and the intrinsic motivation, I'm going to talk about our shared values. We really encourage different values which are fostered in everyday life. They are the ones printed on the wall that you see in the picture: act in a correct manner, thinking big, constantly innovate, aim to excellence, be a team player, have fun. There is a tight connection between the pillars and the values. For example, autonomy is connected to having fun and acting in a correct manner. So by having flexibility in the work office, in the workspace, that means that you can choose projects, you can choose locations, etc. That means that you can work in the things you want. That is related to having fun, to having a great time in the office. But then at the same time, you need to be responsible on what you do. I mean, you need to manage your freedom with responsibility. So act in a correct manner. It is the other value that is connected to the autonomy. Then, for example, mastery. It is connected to be a team player and constantly innovate, because by working together, by learning from each other, by having mentors, by talking to subject matter experts, etc., you can connect in a way that better ideas come across. So innovation and also being a team player. And finally, the purpose pillar, it is connected to the thinking big and aim to excellence. We really started this company in Argentina, but now we're a global company. We want to be the number one company in the world developing software products for our clients. So we are really thinking big from the beginning, and in order to do that, we need to do it with excellence. I mean, we cannot serve the clients that we serve if we don't do things with the quality that we do. So here we have developed an internal mobile and web application, so employees can share these values by assigning different stars to other coworkers. It is a peer-to-peer recognition program where it is called Star Me Up. So people get a certain number of stars, and then they can share among other Globers according to different behaviors that are related to different values. For example, somebody stayed with me late in the office last night to help me with the delivery of a project or a deadline, and then the next morning I go to my mobile application and then I send a be a team player star. Or for example, somebody who is always meeting the deadlines or the quality of the deliverables that he or she has is impeccable. So I would go and give an aim to excellence star. Or for example, somebody who's always wanting to socialize or having a good positive attitude in the office, etc. So I would go with having fun star. So this is a great program because it is a peer-to-peer. You don't need any formal authorization to recognize somebody, and it is really connected to our corporate values. Some numbers for you to see. I mean, we are more than 4,000 employees, so more than 3,000 Globers are using the system, more than 2,000 mobile downloads, and about 3,500 stars given each month. And in this one, I thought it was a good idea to show you this picture that shows how people behave when granting stars to peers. I mean, this is just a capture of a screen. You see the different pictures of employees and how they give stars to other members, to other peers. So, I mean, when analyzing this, I mean, there are several insights or conclusions that one can elaborate and see how people interact through this program. And now going into the ideation, I talked about how the intrinsic motivation pillars connect to the values, and then ideation is about it's about exploring, about constantly innovating and giving feedback, and as I told you, our culture is continuously evolving. It is about reinventing this culture all the time. We say that our culture is on beta mode all the time, where Globers are developers and testers of this culture at the same time. So this culture is constantly evolving. So in this picture, there are some examples of how people work together in different ideation sessions, not only for customers, but also for ourselves, to bring new ideas, to solve internal issues. We have a couple of programs like Globant Labs, a maker space, where Globers can improve ideas and using the technology that we have available. For example, this application Swiper, it has been the result of internal ideation. It was a way Globers were kind of like wanting to understand what stores accepted the American Express corporate card, which is the one that we have for travel expenses. So people created this application that tells you what are the stores that accept corporate travel when you're away from home, and it has more than 500 users in Android and iOS. So this is an example of how we constantly are coming with new ideas to solve our problems, and also, I mean, with the same processes that we use for our internal clients. Before Kai makes his final remarks and we can open for a Q&A, I hope I was clear on showing you what we do at Globant in terms of what are the important pillars that we have to motivate our employees. I mean, what are the programs and practices connected to those, how they connect to the values, and how we have a continuous improvement process of ideation and technology crossing across. I mean, part of our DNA is solving problems through technologies to customers. So also we use it internally, and we develop it in the same way we use it for clients. So Kai, I know that you want to make some final remarks before opening to questions and answers.
Yes, yeah, for sure. Thank you, Guillermo. That was really terrific. And yeah, so the thing, it wasn't actually as much, maybe not as much closing remarks as I had just some interesting observations in sort of my working with Globant and talking with Guillermo and other folks there about a lot of the technologies and things that they leverage that just really got me excited about what they were doing and how they were leveraging these technologies to shape their culture. For one, I really love the autonomy, mastery, and purpose model. So Guillermo made a mention of that it was from Daniel Pink. And actually, if you've not read his book, which is really great, there is a really terrific, he does a TED Talk that's been turned into a 10-minute piece that's you can get on YouTube, that's called The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. And he does a very great overview of his research that was taken from, it was really more of a collection of research, taken from one study done by MIT and another study that was done by the Federal Reserve Bank that got at how, what are the key motivational factors behind high performance, and that money really doesn't motivate people. And at the time a lot of these studies were done, people really thought that it was all about money, and they discovered that it really wasn't, and that it really was this concept of autonomy, mastery, and purpose that drives people. So this was one of the first things that got me excited about when we were talking on the webinar, because I think it's a really great model that I think works very well for looking at if you were to kind of step back and try to understand, how can I have an impact on my culture in ways that I know is going to result in some tangible benefits. It's a really great way to sort of cut up the things that you might do, look at it through that lens, and try to identify, what are the things that I know that I can do that would have that impact on those three areas. So it's just a great model for anyone to, I think, who's thinking about, how it is that I would start supercharging, my culture and motivate employees. So that was really great. I think the other thing that, I also thought was really terrific, and I think explains how these tools have been so successful within Globant, is that, when you look at Globant and what they do, right, it's really all about technology and all about how they leverage technology, combine that with really creative and innovative ideas to solve problems. And I think what's so fascinating is that they're using a key component of their brand, which is this notion of building great technology things, and they're then combining that and using that to supercharge their culture. So while I think that the tools that they've showed would actually benefit pretty much every company out there, I think what's so great is that these are a perfect fit within their brand. So not only are they leveraging these great tools that are having employees become more collaborative and enjoy their job better overall, but it also then helps to reinforce the brand. It helps to reinforce the fact that they're all working towards the same purpose of developing amazing technology solutions. So if they were not a technology provider, if they were a bank, if they were a retailer, while these tools, like I said, I think would be very valuable, I think it's extra special because they're using sort of the things that they build to support that. So that was really amazing about it. And I think the other thing that, today everyone's looking for, I think, ROI on the things that they do and trying to make sure that they can validate the decisions that they make towards trying to improve something that can sometimes feel very intangible, right? A culture is something that's not easy to measure, sort of as a culture itself. So what I think is really great is that when you leverage technology in order to make those things, make cultural change happen, you actually have output that you can measure, right? So I don't know that I would necessarily call these sort of like the final KPI of measuring culture, but they're absolutely leading indicators, right? So it's not that we're looking for the number of stars that employees give out to each other as that final measure of how the culture is improving, but it's an indicator along the way that employees are using the tools and that they are receiving recognition behind the stars. And so it's a great leading indicator that helps to validate that the tools are really doing what you want them to do. So that aspect of it is really great. And then sort of the final one, which will probably be unexpected by the folks at Globant, was that, we're a sister company of theirs. We also are partners with them. We use them ourselves as a supplier of technology and development. I partner with them, in some cases we partner with them for building things internally for us at J. Walter Thompson. In other cases, I partner with them for work with my clients at J. Walter Thompson inside. But what I think was so special was that we could really feel, I think, that sort of final, like in the work that they did and the output that comes out of their organization, we could really feel that there was an amazing culture behind it, right? It was, in a lot of cases, it felt easier to work with them. There were just really great aspects of the relationship that I wouldn't expect from an average partner in this area. So for me, when I come across this, and to be honest, like they're not the only partner that I've worked with that's had something special like that, but when I work with a partner and something really kind of, I can detect that there's something very special about the organization, it always gets me to want to dig deeper. I want to meet more of the people, and I want to understand what's behind that. Why are those people so motivated? Why do they all feel so aligned behind the mission of the organization? And I think, you know, as I dug deeper and learned more about Globant and had developed that relationship with them, what I learned was that there is very purposeful culture management behind it. It's not something that's haphazard. It's not something that's, you know, just happens to be that they have a particularly charismatic CEO who may be very charismatic. I've not met him, but when you feel that, you kind of realize that you know there's something there that's very special. So for me, this was kind of particularly interesting and magical to learn what was behind what they do, and to have validated what we're telling many of our clients, or actually I should say all of my clients, which is that culture is something that doesn't just happen. It's not, you know, it's not random. Doesn't only come from one person at the top of the organization, and it's not just a well-crafted, you know, mission statement. Culture is like a garden that takes tending to, and the more effort you put into very purposefully tending it, the more that you end up with a garden that really suits your purposes, that drives performance within the organization, and that, you know, kind of everybody wants to be there and feels that you're doing something that's good, you're being productive, and I think it's just a great feeling within the organization, and it's very noticeable within the organization, and it's noticeable outside with partners, customers, and so forth. So on that note, yeah, I'd love to turn it over to some questions. I think we had a few that were submitted at the beginning when we had people register. So I think we're going to get through some of those. If you have any others, Olivia mentioned that there is a Q&A box you can get to through the WebEx tools. I think if you can see the little green bar at the top of your screen and mouse over that, one of those has a little call to action where you can get to the Q&A. Feel free to put questions in. We'll answer those. If there are any questions that we don't get to on the call, we've got plenty of time left, I think, to get to questions. But if there are any we don't get to, feel free to keep putting them in. Feel free to send them to anybody within the organization. Olivia mentioned there's the Insights hashtag. You can send questions there. Anywhere you put them through, we'll absolutely get back and answer any of those that you have. So I'll go ahead and turn it back over for those questions, and if whoever wants to read those off.
Hi, thank you. And just a final comment before the Q&A. I loved your conclusion, and something that I really agree on is that culture is not something that is given, that you need to rely on and happens. I mean, you need to manage it, you need to create it. It is about, you know, walking the talk, doing things, sending messages in daily activities. I don't believe that there are big change management process, you know, with I don't know, like a 2-year process to change a culture. You need to do it every day. And related to the stars, I love what you said on it is not about counting the stars. It is about, okay, how people interact with the stars. And there are a couple of examples in Globant where I've seen the CEO sending a message to somebody asking why he or she has recognized with so many stars to one person in a day. What was the extraordinary thing? And actually making sure if it was something related to trading stars or giving stars on the right way, right? So this is about change, and this is about how you create culture with daily activities, talks, interactions, and walking the talk all the day. So I really think you had a great point on that.
Well, I think you're reminding me of something else as well, which is that, and I think you mentioned, right, this doesn't happen overnight. It takes work. I think it doesn't have to be that hard or that complicated, but it takes sort of consistently working on it day in, day out. And I think that the great part about what the technology tools are able to do is they're able to provide an easy way for people to participate on a daily basis, and it helps to reinforce the small little bits of change that happen every day that then ultimately result in kind of the magic of what you get when you have a really great culture. Okay, so is there
how do you go with the questions?
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Okay, wait. So I see some. Sorry, I see some questions who are here. So let me try to take some of these here. So here's a question from someone who asked. It says that they head up communications for an airline in Europe, and employees are mostly from Central and Eastern Europe, 20-something. Does this culture as a foundation apply worldwide, or at least in Hungary? So absolutely, culture is something that is definitely worldwide. I think that it's different in different places. So when we talk about culture, and for the purpose of this conversation, right, we were talking about a corporate culture, right? So these are all of those kind of rituals, habits, and just the feeling of being within an organization, right? But we're talking about how that exists within the walls of the organization. We're not talking about the culture that's outside. But the reality is that the culture that's outside within the country and the specific place where these people live and work has a significant impact on the culture within the organization. And so while culture is important across the world in all places, there are some very interesting cultural differences within those countries that would make certain techniques work in some places and certain not work in others, and just various differences. So I have one example of that, which is that I have another partner that I work with that's based in Mumbai, India. And the culture there is very different from, say, the culture in the United States. And as an example, so one thing that's very true there is that for employees, it's very important that to their families that they work at a very prestigious organization. That's shown as a kind of a sign of success, like career success. So your parents get really excited about you working within a company that they've heard of, right? That's a big company. So one of the things that this partner does is that they will give out business cards to every employee, and any employee, even those that are kind of the lowest within the organization. And they do that to sort of show how strong, that they're a strong organization, and they want these people to have something to be very proud about, to take to their family, and to show that, while maybe you've never heard of this organization, I'm important there, they gave me a business card. And so that's actually become something that's contributed both culturally within the organization and that then fits outside of the organization. Because it's not common for a company to spend that kind of money, even in India, on employees that are not considered to be sort of, important and key within the organization. So that was a particular thing that they did. And in the US, it wouldn't be important at all, but I think that there are things like that you kind of have to look for. There are certain things that are also universal. There's certain, like recognition, I think is very universal. The value that's put on it is going to vary from country to country, but there's things like that that I think are, that are universal. Guillermo, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, and actually related to the stars, and there was also a question on if we give any award like money or something. We believe, and that is why we talked about intrinsic motivation, that these stars shouldn't be traded against like a monetary bonus or some other type of incentives that we use for other types of behaviors, like selling to a customer or increasing revenue or improving a margin. So this is about really intrinsic motivation. Is what happens when you take money out of the table. And we make obviously recognitions at year-end parties, and we celebrate these achievements, but receiving a star, it is not related to money at all. There was also some comments, some questions on okay, how do you make this happen from the beginning, especially in startups? And I think that is the best moment to ask this question about, okay, what type of culture do I want to have? What type of culture do I want to build? And make it a part of your company, part of, as you mentioned, in one of the quotes, like a substantial part of the company. It's not like culture is on top of that, like you define the business model, you define the clients, you define the locations where you want to operate, and then you define culture. No, culture, I mean, you need to build the company from the culture, which is the base of the pyramid, the base of the iceberg, let's say.
Yeah, that's great. So I've got another question here I want to make sure we get to before the end. This was from another participant who said, what's the position of the company about training and sending people to job-related conferences? And so I think this is a really great question, because I think that there's a lot of opportunity in training and job-related conferences, where I think that you can use it as an opportunity to help support the culture. So, for example, the way that I would think about this, right, is if, as you're thinking about sort of those things that motivate employees and that model of autonomy, mastery, and purpose, right, is I think that you can look at training and conferences through that lens and identify ways that you can make that work for employees that fits within those individual areas. So as an example would be, in order to support, say, autonomy within the organization, rather than picking out employees and designating that they should go to a conference, one thing that you might do is, if you have a budget, say, for a certain group of employees to be able to go to maybe one conference a year, to support the idea of autonomy, you can let them decide which conference that they go to, right, of what they would get out of it. To support mastery, then the other thing that you might do is that you might have employees who attend a training session, provided that they're comfortable, come back though and lead a session with other employees to try to share that knowledge, right? So this would be a way to then have this person, as they're developing that mastery, not just get the mastery, but then kind of demonstrate to their coworkers that they've learned these new things and they can come back and be an expert in this area, right? And you might also support that idea of mastery and maybe setting up, like letting people know that somebody attended a training and setting up some sessions where, or ways that people could come and ask that person questions on the topic and kind of make them the known expert for that topic. So I think there's great things like that that are connected with this. So I think it's almost everything that's out there can be an opportunity to support the culture and enhance it. And I think you just have to have, this is why I love that model, is I think it gives you a way to, in a lens, to look at all of those opportunities and decide how to make just small adjustments to those in order to best enhance the culture.
An additional comment on that is that we also follow a model that is called the 70-20-10 for learning. That is actually nothing that we invented. It's at least some theory on how adults learn, which is 70% by doing it and applying it, 20% from learning and talking to other people, like mentoring experiences or talking to somebody who had experience, and only 10% by attending a conference or a training or a seminar, kind of like the more passive type of learning. So we follow this model when we design our learning activities in the company, and also when we have opportunity to send people outside, then there are internal activities, so that knowledge is transferred internally through tech updates, flipped thinking sessions, etc., etc. I think it was a good question as well.
Yeah. So there's another question here that was, I'm going to read it. It says, the culture inside the company feels very good and keeps growing. Do you have a plan on making the people from inside the company take that culture outside of it and contribute to the company popularity in a kind of trending way? So this is a great question, and I think that sort of when you create a great culture within the organization, you're going to naturally have that happen. I think that the opportunity becomes, how can you leverage that sort of even more, and how can you empower employees to be brand advocates, both for that brand as a product brand, like if it's a company that sells some goods and services, or from a recruitment brand, right, and helping to share that culture outside of the organization to bring in other people and get them excited about working at that company as well. I think that those are two things that will naturally happen, and I think the opportunity then becomes, how do you support that with ways that help to validate those activities by employees? Because I'll tell you one thing that I think that we know from doing research and talking with employees is that oftentimes employees do want to share things outside of the organization, but sometimes they're a little bit afraid to, because they feel like they're not sure if they'll share it the right way, and they don't want to get in trouble. So I think that finding ways to give employees sort of a like sanctioned things that they can do. So for example, as part of, like, one thing that we do within our own organization is that we have an application we use called VoiceStorm, and we take all of our employees download this app. They can get to it through the web as well, and what we do is we take all of the marketing updates that we send out and we push them down through this app. And what employees are able to do is, employees see all of these things that we're sharing, and they're able to share those things as well. They can share them on Facebook, on Twitter, they can share them on LinkedIn. And so we've basically given them a stream of sanctioned things for them to share. And so for some employees, they just love to share it. And I found myself that when I share the things that get pushed down, my Twitter account gets more followers, and people on LinkedIn, like those and say that, they're interested. But then we also provide a little bit of incentive behind it, and we give away some prizes for folks to use it to sharing. And that's how we help to reinforce that as kind of a repeating event for employees. They get prizes every quarter for folks who shared things the most. So I think that that's, for us, an opportunity that we saw, and for ways that we empower. I think that there are, many ways to support that through better things like employee referral programs, right, to provide more bonuses for employees who help do recruiting for the company by sharing job opportunities. And there's just lots of other ways like that. So I think it's really just a matter of, looking for those opportunities. And I think those will build on kind of the culture itself. So the more that you enhance the culture, the more effective those will become, and vice versa. So I think it's really a matter of not one or the other, but you want to look for both opportunities.
I'll pick a question on somebody who manages a service desk. He or she wants to understand how they can motivate employees when they do operational tasks, as the typical done in a service desk. So two aspects on that. First, my recommendation would be to believe that even in operational tasks, there are always tasks that can go beyond that, and you can always find even in a service desk some activities or projects where you can excel and go beyond operational activities or daily activities like answering IT tickets, etc. So I would first change the mental model of thinking that a service desk only handles operational activities, because there are always projects that probably the team can be involved. I would then make them participate and bring that to the table with the team and say, okay guys, I know that you guys will make a lot of routine activities, but let's find a way to show ourselves and probably to be recognized in the company because we do something else. Let's excel at something. Let's identify something and let's create something different. And let's change probably the reputation that we have in the company. And then third, I would talk to each one, and that is a management skill to know about your people, to understand what are the skills, the abilities, also the interests and motivations, because many people really need more things. They really want to stretch themselves. Some others are probably more comfortable where they are. So I would really understand what individual wants to accomplish and try to build something from there. And also related to this, to what we have discussing about culture and communication and participation, I would make that an open conversation with the team, not kind of like you as a manager need to solve this problem of motivating employees in a service center, but I would say, okay, let's have a discussion around this and let's create a team solution to this. That would be my answer to that.
Yeah, that's really great, and I don't know that I mentioned it, but when I was talking about that really great Medium post by Brian Chesky from Airbnb, his post included a letter that he sent to employees talking about how important the culture is and how he supports it. And I think the companies that are very successful about culture, they don't try to secretly manipulate the culture. They're very open about how important the culture is to the organization, and they want to hear from employees about it, and they want to find ways to actively make it better. So I think that openness that you mentioned is very important, and it actually helps and makes it a lot easier when folks know that you care about the culture and that you're trying to do something to improve it. I think we're getting down to the end. I'm not sure if there were other questions that we wanted to field. For sure, anything else that is still an open question, we'll for sure make sure we collect and make sure we get a response back to everyone. And as a reminder, we have a recording of this webinar which will be available. So for anyone who attended, you'll, in addition, with a follow-up, get a link to the webinar, so you can feel free to share it with other employees within your organization if you think might find it valuable, who would have missed it. You're always welcome to reach out to Guillermo and I, anyone else available within either company to answer any questions that you might have. Clearly, we love talking about culture and about ways that we're obviously excited about this. So feel free to reach out with any other questions or any comments. We're also always trying to improve the qualities of the webinars, make them as good as possible. We want this time to feel like it's time well spent. So if you have any suggestions for topics that we could cover, feel free to let us know. We would love to hear from you, and we would love nothing more than to cover a topic that everyone is really excited about. So please send those. You can reach out to us on Twitter as well as email. I believe there should be contact information on both of our websites, either globant.com or jwtinside.com, and lots of information on what we do. So if there's anything that we can help you with, whether it's culture, recruitment, building amazing things, please reach out to us. And in many cases, we may partner together and help solve a problem for you. So for sure, we're here to help you. Is there anyone?
From my side, I will pick a question that I just saw on the thread, and then as a final remark, also somebody asking on, okay, what is the recipe to make this also happen as the organization grows and as we make a big company? And that's a great question. I think the answer was embedded in what I said or we said before. This is about taking culture as a priority. I mean, you need to manage it and have it a priority as other parts of the businesses as well. Globant started with 4 founders. Now we are 4,500 employees around the world, and the culture of Globant is still the same in terms of the pillars and the values and the principles, and that is because it is a priority. It is something that we believe from the top. We do daily, task activities, conversations that are related to this. As I said before, this is not something that needs to be handled by human resources. I mean, this is a priority for everyone in the company. Everyone is creating the culture, so that would be also an important feedback or advice, is that as you grow, I mean, you cannot scale if this is something whose owner is kind of like or HR or the top management of the company. This needs to be distributed and make everyone accountable of the culture that we have. I think that is the best solution to that. I mean, if you make everyone accountable across the organization, you will make sure that no matter how big you are, I mean, you will have, ambassadors all over the place. So great question, and again, thank you very much. Thank you, Kai, for the hospitality of having Globant and me in this webinar, and I hope we can have more experiences together in the near future.
Yeah, thank you. It's absolutely my pleasure.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, everyone, for attending.